I need to score 30 out of 30 on the TOEFL speaking section in just a few days, and I have no idea where to begin. I don't know how am I supposed to come up with 2 reasons for question 1 and explain them in just 45 seconds. How to quickly paraphrase the text in questions 2 and 3. Or how to include all the key points from the lecture in question 4. If that sounds like you, keep watching this video. My name is Anastasia, and welcome to our channel, where you'll find all the tips and strategies you need to get a great score on the TOEFL. I scored 119 out of 120 on the TOEFL test, and I have been helping students pass it with flying colors for over 10 years now. In today's lesson, we'll go through one full speaking test together and cover everything you need to know to ace this section, so you'll feel 100% confident on test day. So take a pen or pencil and let's begin. The first question is called independent speaking, and it tests how fluently you can speak on a random topic with very little time to prepare. This is the question that I work on most with my students in one-on-one sessions. You will be asked a question, usually with 2 options to choose from. For example, some people like to study online, while others prefer to study in a traditional classroom. Which do you think is better? You should choose one point of view and explain your reasons. You will have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. Try to answer the question yourself first, and then continue watching to hear my response. Ready? Let's get started.
Number 1. In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
I believe that getting information online is a much better option because it helps you work and study more efficiently. I remember how, back in school, I used to go to the library every time I needed to look something up, and the whole process was incredibly slow. It often took me hours to complete research projects for my classes. But in college, I was already able to use the internet for research, which allowed me to manage the huge assignments I had to hand in. Besides, online content is updated regularly, so it's usually more relevant than printed books. That's why, while some people still prefer paper sources, I would definitely go for online resources instead. Now, you might be wondering if there is a specific structure you should use to answer this question. The answer is no. According to the EDS, it's not necessary to organize your response into an introduction, a middle, and a conclusion as you would with a written essay. You should just speak naturally and use common transitional words such as because, so, after that, on the other hand, I want to mention, and what this means is. That's true! Examiners want to hear a response in which a person speaks at a natural pace, with good pronunciation and intonation. They also want you to use grammar and vocabulary effectively to express your ideas, which means you shouldn't pause too long trying to decide which tense to use, nor should you use the wrong word instead of the one you need. And finally, they want you to clearly explain your opinion. However, in my one-on-one sessions, I often see students get so nervous that they pause a lot, misspeak, and forget words they know. Some of them try to include too much information in their responses, which causes them to rush and make mistakes. So, if you are a fast speaker who can easily generate ideas and are confident in your language skills, feel free to say whatever comes to mind on the day of the test. If you don't feel you belong to this group, approach the question more mechanically. How can you do it? 1. Begin all your responses the same way. Having a phrase to start every answer with can help you deal with pressure and anxiety. 2. Practice using the introductory phrase until it becomes second nature. A clear and effective introduction is key because it's the first part of your response and your best chance to make a good impression. It's hard to believe, but whenever we do this with my students, their performance on question 1 improves by about 30%. After you've successfully drilled the introductory phrase, start drilling the reasoning part. Don't give 2 reasons in your response unless you're a very fast speaker. You simply won't have time to elaborate on them. Give only 1 reason and make it simple and easy to understand. Most people struggle with this part because they can't think of anything quickly enough. There are 2 ways to solve this problem. First, create a list of reasons. Come up with 10 or 20 typical reasons that you can use for most of your responses. Second, use special phrases to introduce your reason. One of them is because this way. For example, I prefer online courses because this way I can save time on my daily commute. I think studying alone is a better option because this way you can focus on your studies. And of course, step number 4 is to drill your example or personal story. Think about ways you can introduce your story, provide details, and conclude it. If you do this, you'll be able to answer any question fluently without preparation, and you'll never be caught off guard on test day. By the way, if you'd like to learn the speaking and writing templates that make up half of your answers and can help boost your score from 22-23 to 25-27, click the link below. These templates will help you feel confident and relaxed on test day and know exactly what to say for each question. Now, let's move on to question 2. This is an integrated question based on a campus announcement. You'll read a short announcement and then listen to a conversation between 2 people who are discussing it. After that, you'll need to briefly summarize the announcement and then explain the opinion of the speaker who is more active in the conversation. You'll also need to elaborate on the 2 reasons they give to support their opinion. This question, along with questions 3 and 4, is where taking notes becomes especially important. First, it helps you remember all the necessary details. And second, it keeps you focused so your mind doesn't wander. Let's give it a try.
Number 2. In this question, you will read a short passage about a campus situation and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now listen to 2 students discussing the article in the newspaper.
I don't like the university's plan.
Really? Why not?
Well, even though we won't have to leave the library, that's just the problem. Nobody's going to feel like walking all the way over to the cafeteria, especially when the weather's bad. They'll just run down to the basement to eat.
I don't understand. Isn't that a good thing?
No, because in the library, they're just going to serve a bunch of unhealthy snacks, sandwiches and sweets and soda, so students will just eat junk. At least the cafeteria has some healthy food.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I probably wouldn't walk over to the cafeteria either.
And I think they're wrong about another thing. If I'm in the library and I know my friends are down in the basement chatting, I'm going to be tempted to go down there and hang out with them. You know what I mean? I'm sure I'm not the only one who'd be tempted to go down there and chat. How's anybody going to concentrate on doing actual work?
Yeah, good point. This whole thing might backfire.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
According to the announcement, the university plans to open a cafe in the basement of the library. The goal is to prevent students from being disrupted by having to leave the building, and to give them a place to take short breaks, which could help them study more effectively. However, the speaker disagrees with this idea. First, she says it will actually cause more problems, not fewer. If students don't leave the library, especially in bad weather, they'll skip the cafeteria and eat unhealthy snacks like soda, sandwiches, and sweets from the cafe instead of healthier meals. Second, she believes the cafe will make it harder for students to concentrate. If they know their friends are chatting downstairs, they'll be tempted to join them, which could make it difficult to stay focused on their studies. In this question, there are three main things to focus on. First, paraphrase the reading. You don't need to change every single word, but try to use some synonyms or express the same ideas in a different way. If you repeat the exact same sentences from the text, this part of your answer won't be evaluated. Second, organize your notes clearly. While reading the text, write down the main idea and two supporting points. Summarize them in 1 or 2 sentences right at the beginning of your response. Then, use a short transition to move to the listening part. Don't make it too long. Just say something like, "The speaker agrees," or "The speaker disagrees with this idea." After that, go straight into the conversation summary. While listening, note down A for agree and D for disagree, plus the keywords from each reason. This will help your response flow more smoothly and prevent long pauses. And always remember, you should start talking about the conversation when there are about 40 seconds left. If you start later, you won't have enough time to include all the important details. Now, question 3. In this question, you'll have 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. You'll read an academic text that explains a concept, and then listen to a lecture that provides an example or explains the same concept in more detail. For example, let's say the reading passage is about social loafing. It will explain that social loafing is when people tend to put in less effort when working in a group than when working alone. Then, the lecturer might describe an experiment with 2 groups of people peeling potatoes. The first group was peeling potatoes together, while the second group was peeling them individually. And the people working alone peeled significantly more potatoes. That's it. As you can see, the lecture shows how the concept of social loafing works in a real-life example. Your job, just like in question 2, is to summarize both the reading and the lecture. Again, always remember, when there are about 40 seconds left in your response, that's when you should begin talking about the lecture. If you start later, you may not have enough time to include all the important details. Let's give it a try.
Number 3. In this question, you will read a short passage on an academic subject and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now listen to a lecture on this topic in a psychology class.
Okay, here's an example. Last week, I went shopping for a pair of jeans. I hadn't bought jeans in years, and boy, was I in for a surprise. You see, all I wanted was regular jeans. But when I told this to the salesperson, he looked at me as though I were from Mars. He explained I could choose between 5 different styles, straight or baggy, and I don't know what else, and a dozen colors. And on top of that, did I want buttons or zipper? Now, it used to be there were only a couple of jeans types, and it was easy for me to decide what I wanted. Now, with all these different possibilities, shopping was hard. I went back and forth. This pair was really comfortable, but this other one was the most fashionable, and there were at least 4 different colors that looked really good. Finally, I did settle on one. But what used to take 5 minutes had turned into a 2-hour project. Before, the choice was basically dark blue or light blue, period. Maybe the fit wasn't perfect, but deciding was easy. But now I had a complex and time-consuming problem on my hands. Plus, all the back and forth actually gave me a headache. Was I making the right decision? How could I be sure? Sure, it was only a pair of jeans, but I left the store anxious rather than satisfied with my purchase.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
The reading is about the paradox of choice, which is when people often feel overwhelmed and stressed when faced with too many options because they want to make the best possible decision. The professor delves deeper into the topic by providing an example of how he recently went shopping for a pair of jeans. While he expected a simple choice between light blue and dark blue regular jeans, the shop assistant offered him 5 different styles, like straight and baggy, various colors and options with buttons or zippers. Since there were so many choices, the professor found it difficult to decide and spent about 2 hours going back and forth between different styles and colors, trying to find the perfect pair. In the end, he left the store anxious rather than satisfied, and said that buying jeans in the past took only 5 minutes and was much more enjoyable. If you want to answer TOEFL speaking questions without hesitation, panic, or mistakes, click the link below and enroll in our TOEFL course. We'll teach you how to take effective notes, speak confidently, and most importantly, use high-scoring templates for each question to boost your score. You'll also go through TOEFL reading passages with us, analyze each question type in detail, and much more. You'll get access to the LinguaTOEFL app where you can take practice tests, track your progress, and receive a promo code for a 5% discount on your TOEFL test. For those of you who have been struggling with the TOEFL for a long time and want personalized feedback, you can choose our Pro package and schedule a consultation with me. I'll evaluate your writing and speaking responses and explain exactly what you need to change to improve your score. Finally, the last question is question 4, the academic lecture. In this task, you'll only have 20 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. You won't read any text this time. You'll just listen to a lecture. It usually begins with a professor explaining a topic or a concept, followed by 2 examples that illustrate it. For example, it might be about 2 types of animals, 2 adaptation strategies, or 2 ways something happens. Your job is to listen carefully, take notes, and then summarize the lecture. Let's try it.
Number 4. In this question, you will listen to a short lecture. You will then be asked to summarize important information from the lecture. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Listen to part of a talk in an environmental science class.
There's one more method of forest conservation I want to talk about before we end today, and that's forest fires. It may come as a surprise to many of you, but fire is a key element of many ecosystems. For example, it's a natural, normal process that helps maintain a healthy forest. For decades, we believed fires should be suppressed at all costs, so they were put out as quickly as possible to preserve the environment. But in the last 20 years or so, we've come to realize the advantages of regular, controlled fires to an ecosystem. In fact, a lot of plant species depend on fire for survival. In a forest full of pine trees, for example, fire is necessary for reproduction. Pine trees in particular need fire in order to spread their seeds. Pine trees, of course, have pine cones, which contain their seeds. So, what happens is that the heat from a fire melts the resin, that sticky stuff that holds the cone scales together, so the resin melts and the cones open up, and the seeds inside the cone are released on the ground. And eventually, young pine trees grow from them. So, thanks to the fire, we've got a new generation of pine trees. Like I said earlier, fires can help grow better forests, which in turn creates a better habitat for wildlife in the areas. For instance, they have an impact on the density of the forest. A fire that kills some trees but not others can open up a forest area previously thick with trees. This lets in sunshine, which encourages growth of new shrubs and grasses. The new plant life, in turn, brings in new animal species. Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
The lecture is about 2 positive effects of forest fires on the ecosystem and how they support forest conservation. The first benefit is that fires help certain plant species reproduce, which means that they actually depend on fire for survival. The professor explains that pine trees need heat to release their seeds. The fire melts the resin, a sticky substance, on the pine cones, which allows them to open and drop their seeds onto the ground so that new pine trees can grow. The second advantage is that forest fires create better habitats for wildlife. Since the fire burns some trees and leaves others, it reduces forest density and opens up areas that were once thick with trees. This allows more sunlight to reach the ground, helping new grasses and shrubs grow. As a result, new animal species are attracted to the area. As you can see, this task gives you a lot of information very quickly. However, it's not as overwhelming as it seems. To get a high score, you need to follow a clear structure and know which information to include and which to leave out. Here are a few tips. Don't waste time at the beginning. Always begin with the lecture is about 2 and then go straight into the 2 sub-points mentioned. This lecture included a lot of information at the beginning that you simply don't need. That's because the speaker is just trying to create some context to help you understand the topic. Your job is to get straight to the point. In this case, the 2 advantages of forest fires. 2. Keep in mind that this task follows a very predictable structure. The professor will introduce each of the 2 subtopics, explain them, and then give an example. So when you take notes, focus only on the key parts of this pattern and skip all the extra details. 3. Use fewer long sentences rather than many short ones. For example, you can combine the subtopic and its definition in one sentence by saying, the first is which means that. Then add 1 or 2 sentences explaining the example. Don't worry about the fact that the lecturer says a lot more than you will. Again, they're just doing that to make sure you fully understand the topic, nothing more. And of course, write down the main keywords to help you stay fluent. If you hear a word you recognize, but are afraid you might forget, write it down. That way, you won't pause or stutter when speaking. For example, in this lecture, you could have written down words like pine trees, pine cones, resin, seeds, and so on. Well, that's the end of our speaking section. I hope this video was helpful and gave you a clearer understanding of what to expect. Feel free to share your answers to these questions in the comments below. This way, you can also learn from your peers. If you're struggling with the speaking section, click the link and get all your questions answered. If your exam is coming up soon, you can choose the Pro package and schedule a consultation with me. I'll evaluate your responses and tell you exactly what you need to change in order to score 26 or higher. Also, if you've already taken the test, please share your results in the comments. Your stories are always inspiring, and it's a great way for us to connect. Good luck to you all, have a nice and sunny day, and until next time,